Are you tired of self-doubt holding you back? Have you ever wished you could have the confidence to face your fears, go after your wildest dreams, and the tools necessary to live your best life? Hey there, amazing listeners. I'm your host and author of How to Grasp Confidence and Own Your Power. And I've made it my mission to help you break free from self-doubt and embrace confidence. Subscribe now and join us as we unlock the secrets to unshakable self-assurance. Let's dive in. So let's get into it. Today's show is an interesting take on confidence. We're going to be interviewing the descendant, the actual descendant of a former samurai warrior. So I thought a good title for this show would be Samurai Success, Unleashing Business Confidence. And my guest is nothing short of remarkable, and her story is incredible. Lori, I would love for you to introduce yourself and let's get to know you a little better.
Well, great. Well, thank you, first of all, Tara, for having me. And my name is Lori Tsugawa. I am a descendant of the samurai warrior, as she mentioned, because I found this out through a lot of research and after an accident, which brought me here today. It was a traumatic, just two rear-end accidents in it. I was diagnosed with mild traumatic brain injury. I get those people. I'm sorry, TBI, but it meant that nothing less than not mild. It was just means that it wasn't a closed head injury, but I was bumped, and then my whole world was jumbled up after that.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So there's, a lot going on there. There's a lot of, it sounds like a story of overcoming, a story of resilience, right?
Yes.
A story of overcoming some adversity. But, right now, you've got a lot of things going on, in your professional career. You're a TEDx speaker, so you've spoken on the TEDx stage. You're an author. You're, in business. You're very much use this kind of samurai strategy in your business to help clients as well. I would love to hear a little bit about that, and then let's touch on that accident as well that you talked about. So tell me a little bit about what you've got going on in your life right now.
Well, what I have going on in my life is I'm using LinkedIn a lot more than I have in the past and finding it very, very interesting, connecting with people that I had lost touch with. And it's more, I would say, more of what I'm wanting to do, go down the business avenue and just really have good, deep conversations, because the Code of Bushido, which I base a lot of my teaching on, it includes courage, integrity, benevolence, respect, honesty, honor, and loyalty. And I realized or found out through research is that's what the samurai lived by. And that's what made them great. They were great warriors, but they were also had that right side, that left side of them. It's a great warrior, but the right side is did tea ceremony. They wrote, they did poetry, haiku, all kinds of arts. They were artists and teachers, scholars. So they were very well-rounded individuals, what we strive for today in our lives. And what I teach people, and what I actually taught in the prison is, what your life will reflect on what you do on your outside world. And so I help the women in the prisons have better lives. And even in today's society, and talking with other people and be on stages, I encourage people to be their best, to take the high road, to always think of the other person. And it's not all about you, because your world, we're not all little islands. We are interconnected. And the way that we show up in the world is how our lives will be.
Yeah. How we think, our deeds, our words, our actions, right? They all translate into the realities and our outcomes.
Yes.
And it's not just about how we treat ourselves, but it's how we treat others as well.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So talk a little bit about this method that you mentioned, this samurai code. I would love to understand it a little bit better. Can you break it down for me? I know you said one
Sure.
aspect is
I do have this, and it doesn't show up very well on StreamYard, but it is the Code of Bushido, and you put yourself in any situation. You say, "What would I do? What are my parameters? Where do I put my stake in the ground?" And most people, I would say, whether it's personal or business, want to have people that they trust, that they know, that they like, and actually that. The accident made me a better person. It made me really realize that life isn't easy for everybody. It's not, it's not this American dream for everybody. And so being in the prison helped me realize that no, everything is not the same. And then looking into my parents' background and studying that and also writing about it, realize that people can overcome adversities and their brain can and does produce and new neural pathways in order to succeed, because I was a mess. I just have to say I was a mess back then. I don't like to think back to those days, but it made me a better person. It made me overcome adversities, and I set the goal to write a book. And so I actually did write the book, and it was self-published, and then I was offered a contract with Tuttle Publishing, and so it's now published by a major international company. And it's being seen and read more throughout the world, and because of the more international distribution.
Wow. So we have the samurai code of ethics, and you mentioned going to prisons, but I don't think you mentioned why you started doing that and anything about, any details associated with it. What exactly are you doing with the prison system or with people?
Well, I'm not anymore, but what happened was I've been a Toastmaster for quite a few years to overcome my adversity to public speaking. I'm a middle child and I just hated it. In fact, one of my teachers said, Laura's not going to get an A or a B unless she speaks up and raises her hand and answers questions. And so I did that for the whole year I was with this one teacher. But then I reverted back to being the shy middle child. And I was challenged to through Clemmer and Associates, to do a seminar. And so I did. And they said, well, the one thing you do is you'll introduce the speaker. And I just about gasped on the other. Back then we used telephones. And I said, okay. And so I just literally went to the nearest Toastmasters to find out how to gain the confidence to speak it. She did, oh, don't worry, there's a script. I go, okay, and that's good. But I just didn't like speaking. But now I love speaking. I really do love speaking. I'm also a storyteller. And when that all came through the prison. I went to their Toastmasters group as a visitor, and the women in the prison really resonated with me and what I was doing. And the coordinator for the volunteers said, we need to have you in this system. We really want to hear. I said, okay. So she found a place for me, and I was there for almost 12 years and teaching women that they can have a better life and encourage them to find out what they're good at, find their ikigai, to also go through the Code of Bushido, my book. And if I can do it in the prison, I know I have. I can go from the prison house to the penthouse, and I have taught people that are out of prison. But I said, you can be free right here in the prison, and you can be in prison if you're outside these doors. So it's all a matter of what goes on between your two ears.
Wow. Let's hang on that for a minute, because in my book, How to Grasp Confidence and Own Your Power, the last part of that 5-step method that I teach is purpose. And I actually talk about ikigai in that. Yeah. Purpose is actually, it's a 2-chapter section in my book. So I'm a believer in this, right? And I know a lot of our readers and listeners are as well. But the interesting thing about purpose is that I think it's really brought out when we experience a level of adversity and challenge. We, as humans, like to seek comfort. We don't necessarily want to undergo adversity. Nobody like raises their hand and says, sign me up for that. But when we undergo adversity, it can actually be very transformative to us and help us align with a deeper, greater purpose a lot of the times. I would love to hear your thoughts on that, because you went through this accident and you went through a lot of adversity and struggle to climb your way back. But it must have had some type of transformative impact on you, don't you think, Laurie?
Oh, yes. I have always wanted to write a book, but never really sat down to do it. But this was my goal, to overcome traumatic brain injury, because I thought if I write that book, I will have succeeded in overcoming that adversity that I was facing. And it does shape you. And when I talk about purpose, I also through that found out about Ikigai, which is from Okinawa. It's over 1,000 years old, and that's part of my coaching program is Ikigai, Code of Bushido, and at the end, Gambaru. That's the Japanese word for never giving up. And that's what my parents taught me. You don't give up no matter what. I'm a farmer's daughter, and you don't give up. If it's raining outside and there's berries on the rows, you just go out there and pick at it. After everybody else leaves, we work pretty hard most of my childhood life, especially in the summer. But it made me who I am, made me appreciate hard work, hard labor. Now I know where food comes from. It doesn't come from the grocery stores. We actually have to, you see the whole process of planting and picking and harvesting and all that. It's because a lot of people don't realize that what goes into the products that they eat. And I do, I appreciate it. I appreciate farmers and appreciate hard work. But what I was doing and growing up, I just knew that wasn't my life. Like a woman that I read about it, Yayoi Kusama, who is the highest paid female artist in the world, and she's 95. She says she paints every day of her life. So she found her Ikigai at a very young age, and I love it. I love her story, and I actually went, when I was in Japan, I just returned about a month ago, I went to her museum in Tokyo, and it's just the impact that she's had on the world, because she never gave up. Her parents said, no, women don't do art. Women are teachers, they're nurses, they're those kinds of professions that you need to find something that, but she did not give up from that day she discovered being in the fields and seeing everything in dots, that she never gave up. And that was over almost 90 years ago that she did that. She found out at a very young age what her Ikigai was, but I didn't find out until much later in life. But it doesn't matter if you find it at age 10 or age 50 or 60, like the Colonel. You just go forward with your purpose, and you never give up. Just be relentless at Gambaru. And that's what taught me never to give up, because I had a choice. If I had given up, I'd be reading at 7th grade level and not a very productive citizen of the world. I'd just be, having to rely on other people for the rest of our life. And I did not want to do that. So I fought back with all kinds of appointments, speech pathology. I even did vision therapy, physiatrist, chiropractor, physical therapy. I went through hundreds of appointments. It was like a job, but I was determined to get better.
Yes, it's interesting. And you know what? That circumstance you were in with that, horrific car accident that left you with, brain damage, reading at a 7th grade reading level, a lot of people probably told you, hey, take it easy. It's okay, right? If you rest and just kind of chill out, and and they probably told you, that it's all right, on your own time, but you were relentless, and you really wanted to pursue health, getting better, and then, also being able to do something incredible, like writing a book and speaking on stage, on the TEDx stage. These are incredible things that most people without overcoming a huge adversity have a hard time grasping and, achieving. And again, that kind of points back to my point of adversity can actually equip us for something greater, that greater level of purpose.
Uh-huh.
It's really empowering to think about it that way. And it's very much a mindset shift, don't you think?
I believe so, because back then, that was '05 and '07, I could have just say, oh, well, okay, Sarah, Sarah. And a lot of people in the brain injury community and when I was in, a lot of them did give up. They just were, people were in wheelchairs, people were uh, disabled. And I could have been disabled if I would have wanted to claim and say, I can't think. But I didn't want that. I didn't want that for myself. I knew that there was more to life than doing that. And I wanted to, as a, Japanese, you don't give up. My parents didn't give up. And all the adversities that they went through, those horrible camps and racial prejudice. And I faced that to some extent, but not like what they did. But I was determined, not to give up. I didn't want that to define me, because it really could have. It could have been a defining point and say, well, this is Lori. And it's like, no, I don't want this is Lori. I believe that I had a better life and a more productive future ahead of me if I just continued. And that's what I did. I just continued, and I sought out professionals who were sympathetic to that, because they were professionals. As I said, my ophthalmologist said, there's no correlation between you reading at a 7th grade level and your injury. And I said, okay, thank you. I did not go back to him, because I knew that there had to be some kind of solution. And so I continued to seek out professionals that were more aligned, like physiatrists. They don't want you to, they're doctors, they're not surgeons. So their main intent is to make you, to rehabilitate you. And that's a lot of athletes, a lot of people who've gone through car accidents, through strokes, go to physiatrists for that reason. They don't want to take a lot of pills. They don't want surgery. They want to do it, and they want to recover back as best as they can.
It's amazing how plastic our brains are. And when I say that, I mean they're so malleable. We can do so much more with them. Even if they are injured, even if there's a limitation there. And this it's called neuroplasticity, right? Mm-hmm. Our ability to continually, grow our the neural connectivity of our brains and create new neural pathways and learn is all within our reach. And it's important that we don't give up. And, regardless of what circumstance we're facing in life, if our business, if we're, maybe we're aligned with purpose, Lori, and we have a business, but it's struggling, don't give up. If you're facing an extreme adversity, either physically and mentally or emotionally, don't give up, right? What I've learned is that time goes by either way, whether we give up or not. And I would much rather bet on myself.
Yes.
I would much rather try steady improvements. I would much rather not give up than give in.
Yes.
Giving in, anybody can do. Anybody can do that. And there's always going to be people around us every day that tell us, take it easy, right? It's okay that it failed. No, we can get back up and we can just keep pushing. Maybe it sounds corny, but the mental image that I always have in my head is somebody in a mine, right, underground, and they have a pickaxe. And they're this far away from that huge diamond. But they throw down their pickaxe and say, I've already went in 20 feet. There's nothing here. And it's really easy to say that, right?
Uh-huh.
But it's the person who gets that diamond that says, one more. Right. One more. I'm just going to keep going. What do you think about that? Do you have a secret, Lori, like a mental image that you keep in your mind that says, I'm going to keep going no matter what?
Well, the samurai, how they never gave up. And even if it meant that they would lose, they would go into battle because they would rather die the honorable death than to retreat or go hide out. And my mother always taught me never give up, because if you have a goal, there's somebody on the other side that will meet your goal, or vice versa. You could be somebody else's answer to overcoming their success. And I think about the farm. I think about my mom who just never let us give up. She always says, well, try this, try that. And she would just be honest until we followed through. And I knew that if I didn't follow through, then I would be, shall we say, not a very productive person in society. And I did not want that, because I knew that my life did have a purpose, and I was going to find it, and I was going to help others, and I was going to overachieve it, because I just did not want to be in that situation. I mean, who wants to be in their, say in their 50s or 60s and say, well, I just back there and I can't do much. And I just didn't want to rely on other people, because I knew that I had it in me. I knew, because of the samurai, stand 7 times. No, stand up 7 times, fall 7 times, stand up 8. That's it. Fall 7 times. And that's a Japanese proverb. You don't give up. And my parents always told me, you don't give up. And I saw so many situations, and especially my parents' generation, where they did not give up. Like the late Senator Inoue, who was served over 60 years, never gave up. And he knew that even though he had an arm severed, he couldn't be a doctor. So he became a lawyer and helped people, especially minorities, find their, find equality, and that he dedicated his life to that. But he started as a lieutenant in the army that went out on the front lines, and he fought the battles. He just didn't say, go out there, guys, and fight. He said, I'll be with you. And he did. He was on the front lines, and he won was awarded many medals, and he just never gave up. He was a very unassuming person, but very accomplished. And so there's so many people like that in my book that I talk about that people don't know. There's people that of resilience, and the men of the 442nd, and how they fought, and they were the most highly decorated unit in U.S. military history for its size and length of time in service. And yet they faced prejudice. Nobody wanted them. So they formed their own unit, and they fought valiantly. They were without equal.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. So much wisdom there, But I want to highlight on this comment from Josie Madison. She says, love this. What an inspiring story. Living in alignment with your ikigai can lead to such a fulfilling life. Adversity often forces us to think outside of the box and come up with innovative solutions to overcome obstacles. Amen to that.
Yes.
So true, right? And I've seen it in my own life. I had a lot of adversities in childhood, and that's not uncommon for a lot of people. What's common is sometimes to use those adversities as a crutch and to say, you know what, I'm just going to stay down. And, the thing I've learned about life is, you're going to get knocked down. You're going to get pushed around a little bit, and nobody blames you when you do. It's not your fault. I want to mention that it's nobody's fault for getting knocked down. But in 5 years, Lori, if we still find you knocked down, whose fault is it? We have to have that samurai mindset a little bit and say, you know what? I've gotten knocked down 7 times. I'm standing up each time. That's the key to success, isn't it?
Never give up. Never give up. And that's Gambaru. And that was my mom. My mom loved her whole life, raising 6 children, and she had 5 children in 6 years, and then the other one came at the end. And I watched her being the farmer's wife. She didn't know a thing about farming, and she just everything she did, she just went through it full steam ahead, and she didn't take no for an answer. And neither did my grandmothers. That was one of my, actually, I haven't been on 2 TEDx things. That was one of the themes, is never giving up. And I learned from my Japanese grandmothers, one of them I never knew, but one I did, how they never gave up. It didn't matter, if what the circumstances were, they did not give up.
Yes. Amen. And I'm stubbornly persistent. And yeah, well, it was always a negative thing when I was growing up, Lori. So I'm just a very stubborn person. And it was always brought out as a negative quality. Oh, you're too stubborn. You're too stubborn, too stubborn. Actually, as an entrepreneur, it's one of the best traits, and, almost like precursors to success. I'm so stubborn. I'm so persistent. And I get back up so many times that nothing can stand in the way of it. And I started to realize that, a small trickle of water over time on a large boulder will crack that boulder in two.
Yeah.
And we see this in nature all of the time. You look at the Grand Canyon as an example of this. The Grand Canyon was formed over millions of years of pure and utter persistence. That's all. And then it led to this humongous natural feature, right? That's all persistence is. So that's a natural example of it. But we as entrepreneurs can be natural examples of this as well. You get turned down by a client, you get rejected maybe, then you know what? Be so stubborn and so persistent that now you're going to reach out to 2 more people. Let that rejection start fueling you instead of destroying you. And then I feel like that's when you get a little bit more closer to that samurai mentality, don't you think?
I think so, yeah.
I think so too. I'm going to start picturing myself with a samurai sword.
And you know the story about Tomoe Goes In, the famous, she was relentless, and she lived to be in her about 90 years old, way back 1157 to 1247. That's a long life way back then. Even now, 90 years is higher than average, and she never gave up, and she didn't care whether or not she did not get the, shall we say, the acclamation that she needed or was deserved, but that didn't stop her. That was not her goal. Her goal was to be the best female samurai warrior. And she was, as far as we know, that she is the one that has been featured in anime and manga, and people look up to her. And I saw her in a historical parade, and at that time, way back in the 80s, I didn't know there were female samurai. But then I started researching about her and finding out about her life, and she was incredible. She was gave us people. When we live our lives, we don't realize who or how we are affecting others. And you want it to be a positive thing, and you want it, at least I would think people would want it to be like Tomoe. What are the people going to say about me 1,000 years from now? And they're still talking about her. They're still featuring her. And she's an example of courage and just never giving up, that Gambara spirit.
Yes. And you know what? If she would have given up, would she have built a legacy?
That's right. No, she would have been forgotten.
Would have been forgotten in history. Let this be a lesson to everyone who is listening to this show right now. If we have no other takeaways from the show, if we give up, we don't build a legacy, folks. And it's really easy to give up. Again, every time we kind of hit the snooze button, it could be the actual snooze button, right? Or the proverbial one. And we say, you know what, I'm just not going to take action right now. Now's not the time, right? Maybe tomorrow will be better. Maybe next year, next month, whatever. And then you know what? Again, that, like I said earlier, that time kind of goes by either way. So really mastering this samurai mindset that we're talking about is really capturing the present moment and not giving up in that present moment and not giving in, and instead just stubbornly persisting until you build that legacy. Because again, something that's stubbornly persistent, nothing can stand in the way of it. Nothing. So you went through this huge adversity. You had this traumatic brain injury that you were reading at a 7th grade level. And then through stubborn persistence, not luck, stubborn persistence, right? You overcame, you became a TEDx speaker. You said you've spoken on the TEDx stage twice. I didn't even know that. I'll have to check out. That's your talks now. And then you go and write this incredible book and develop this incredible formula to help other people succeed in business and life. None of that was easy, but you did it. And that just shows that it is possible to build that legacy, even in the face of resistance and adversity. What would you say is your biggest lesson from all that time? You know, all this discovery that you had to go through and all this transformation. What would you say the biggest takeaway for you, do you think was?
I think just owning your own power, just never giving up. And I talked a lot about Gambaru. I saw it so much growing up. My parents went through, horrible adversity, and my mom started a business, and she said, I don't know much about this, but I'm going to take this business and make it a success. And that was over 40 years ago. And the business is still in existence. And that's a testament to her and her determination. And she worked tirelessly. And I saw her that she was fulfilling an empty nest syndrome. And this opportunity came about right after the Mount St. Helens blew, and they bought the property. And she says, I'm going to run it. There was a dilapidated buildings and a defunct business, but she made a go of it. And now it's like a destination nursery in the Southwest, Pacific Northwest, but it's the Southwest part of the Northwest. Wow. And it is a Japanese nursery, and that's what she specializes in. And she's passed away, but now my brother's taken over, and that still is the Japanese maples and the Japanese plants, and that is the theme of the nursery.
I love that. And I love how you embrace your culture so much and incorporate it into your business and your, just everything. It's so cool to see. I just really like that. And it's not every day you talk to a descendant of a samurai warrior, right? This is so interesting to me. And I know it's interesting for everybody else that's listening as well. But Lori, what a pleasure. Thank you so much for the interview today and for being on our show. How can anybody get a hold of you? What are the best ways people can get a hold of you? Because I know people are going to want to reach out.
Okay. Well, my website right now is called just Lori Whaley, LORIWHALEY.com. It has information, and you can subscribe to my email. Almost weekly, I've been doing not interviews. I've been doing just talking and sharing about my experience, because I've been to Japan. I came back from probably my 13th or 14th trip, and I love Japan. It's my happy place. I plan to take people there again next year. And just because unless you are in the culture, it's hard to understand how wonderful it is. You don't see litter, you don't see garbage, you don't see. In the city of Kyoto, of over like 1.5 million people, I saw 2 homeless people. You don't see garbage, and you don't see graffiti on the wall, because they teach them in the grade school. The children are the janitors. They don't have janitors. They clean their school before school and then after school. They also serve each other. And so there's a lot more community and personal responsibility I believe in that culture. We can learn that. I mean, we're here in America, and not everything would work, but there are things that I really appreciate about Japan. Nobody's walking around eating on their cell phones. They just are very respectful. The only time you get pushed around is maybe at the peak hours, like going to work or coming back from work. You see people being pushed into the cars, and I don't know. Well, if they were polite and everybody walked out, no, they wouldn't get home for several hours, because there's so many people. And unless you go to Japan, I feel like you won't get the full understanding of the samurai and how it has permeated throughout society. Like after the tsunamis and earthquakes, people helped each other. They returned millions of dollars back to the police station so that people could have their safety box or their goods or their jewelry. It was all taken to the police station so that people can receive what they lost.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That sounds amazing. I haven't made it to Japan yet, but my daughter is 8 years old, very into anime and Japanese culture, so I'm sure we'll be making it.
Oh, that would be wonderful for you.
Well, it was wonderful talking to you today, Lori, and thank you for everyone who tuned into the show. Guys, don't forget to hit subscribe so you can make sure to not miss interviews with the most interesting guests in the world. I don't use that lightly, because I literally do interview the most interesting people every single week, sometimes twice a week. But make sure you hit subscribe, refer this to your friends, share it with your networks, and leave us a review with your experiences because we love hearing from each of you. Thank you so much, and we will catch you on next week's episode. Take care.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Grasp Confidence. Thank you for joining me today and investing in yourself. Remember, building confidence is an ongoing journey, and each step you take brings you closer to the empowered, fearless version of yourself that you were born to be. Don't forget to visit my website, follow me on social media, and purchase my book, which is available on Amazon. Thank you for listening. We will see you on the next episode. Stay confident.